What's up, everyone out there in YouTube world, Facebook world, social media world, the world? Welcome to another episode of Musings with MGL. I'm your host, as always, MGL. Thank you for tuning in. As always, before we get started, if you like what I have to say and you like the channel, please like and share and subscribe. I'm at 838 or 840 subscribers or something. My goal is to get to 1,000 before the end of the year, so I have a few more months to go to pick up 170 or so people. So if you wanted to be one of those extra 171 people, I'd really appreciate it. Click the subscribe, bell notification, ding, 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 etc., etc. So today, I'm going to do a video on a big story that's been making the rounds all over the place. It's been on all the talk shows. Steven Crowder did a big thing about it. It's on every news media out there. There's all kinds of other YouTube videos out there. So I'm just going to give you my take on it. But essentially, as you can tell by the headline here, the topic is that credit card companies are now going to start tracking firearm purchases. In other words, prior to now, if you bought a firearm at a gun shop, it didn't get any particular special code or designation. It just said like purchase from a retail shop. But now they're going to give it a special code. So then every time somebody purchases a firearm from a gun shop, there'll be a registration essentially of that purchase based on the credit card codes. So I'm just going to read through this story and give you an idea of what's going on, and then I'll tell you what it means for you and what my take on it is. So this comes at us from Axios. It's essentially, I tried to pick a neutral article because, of course, all the left-wing things are talking about how great it is. All the right, I don't say right-wing, but all the conservative things are saying how awful it is. They're correct, obviously. So I just wanted to pick one that had some facts in it, and then I'll give you my spin on it on the backside. So credit card companies to track gun store purchases. Credit card giants Visa, MasterCard, and American Express are taking steps to help better track firearm sales in a move hailed by gun control proponents. Why it matters. Payment processors have been under pressure to help monitor gun purchases and concerns over mass shootings and other violence. What's happening? A panel of the International Organization for Standardization voted to approve the creation of a, quote, merchant category code for gun retailers, and the credit card companies are adopting the change. That means gun stores will no longer be categorized as, for example, specialty retailers, potentially making it easier to track firearm spending. Supporters hailed the development as a critical step toward undermining the flow of guns into the hands of violent people. Quote, until this decision, gun and ammunition stores did not have a unique merchant category code. Mayan Gunaratna, Chief Public Affairs Officer of Everytown for Gun Safety, hey, everybody's favorite place, said on Twitter. Now banks and credit card companies can more easily report dangerous and potentially illegal gun purchases to law enforcement. Yes, but the manner in which the code is used may determine whether it's effective in bolstering monitoring efforts, goes too far, or doesn't go far enough. For example, it's currently unclear whether retailers that also sell other products will be forced to use the merchant codes when processing firearm purchases, meaning if you go buy a firearm at Dick's or Bass Pro Sports or Walmart or wherever, if you can find one of those chicken shit big chain retailers that still sell firearms, do they have to use the code even though they're a store that's not particularly selling firearms? But if they sell a firearm, they have to give a different code. So that's up for debate. Quote, we now turn our focus to how it will be implemented by merchants and their banks as we continue to support lawful purchases on our network while protecting the privacy and decisions of individual cardholders, MasterCard said in a statement. This is exactly how we would manage the process for any other appropriate MCC, which is the code, like a bicycle shop or sporting goods store. The other side. Opponents warned that the move sets a dangerous precedent, potentially opening the door for additional trafficking of other types of transactions. Quote, some executives in private discussions have flagged concerns that it could lead to the creation of more codes that could be used to crack down on controversial businesses such as abortion providers. Funny how it always comes down to abortion. The code's creation, quote, is flawed on its premise, Mark Olivia, spokesman for the National Shooting Sports Foundation, said in an email to Axios. He said it chills the free exercise of constitutionally protected rights and does nothing to assist law enforcement with crime prevention or holding criminals accountable. The big question, how will the credit card companies, which are steeped in fraud detection, determine whether a purchase from a gun store is suspicious? Quote, the code will show where an individual spends money, but not what items were purchased, Reuters reported. The Aurora movie theater shooter used a MasterCard to purchase $11,000 worth of weapons and military gear in the 6 weeks leading up to the shooting, including from standalone gun stores. And the Pulse shooter, who killed 49 people, also used a MasterCard to purchase more than $26,000 in firearms and ammunition, New York City Comptroller Brad Lander said Monday at a press conference. Who gives a shit what New York City thinks? The bottom line, financial companies are getting more proactive in an effort to show they're not ignoring fears about guns. Quote, we all have to do our part to stop gun violence, said Priscilla Sims Brown, CEO of Amalgamated Bank, which petitioned for the change in a statement. So there you go. Was that it? I think that was it. So in a nutshell, credit card companies are now going to use a specific code for firearm companies and firearm retailers whenever you purchase a firearm. So now, if anybody wants to know if you used your credit card at a gun shop, it's easy to find out because you can just put in the merchant code and it will say whatever the code number is going to be, meaning a gun shop purchase, as opposed to right now where it just might say retailer or whatever and nobody can find out. So obviously what those of us on the pro-Second Amendment side are concerned about is this is essentially going to create a gun registration. It's basically a one-stop shop for the federal government to go to the MasterCard or Visa or Amex and say, hey, Jeff Jones or Mark Smith or whoever, we want to know how many guns he's purchased and where he's purchased them from. Please run his code through there and give us all that information. And then they would turn over an information of everybody or everything that he's ever purchased. Or if they just want to say, give us all your MCC codes for anybody who's purchased under that code, and now they get a name of every person who's recently been to a gun store and purchased guns or ammunition. So it is clearly a backdoor registration system. The federal government knows that they can't do a registration on their own because it would be deemed to be unconstitutional, and so they're trying to do a backdoor registration through the credit card companies. We also know that the credit card companies have a history of not working with gun shop retailers. There's a lot of them who will not allow certain gun shops or gun shops in general to have credit card machines in their shop or to run credit cards through them or have accounts at their particular banks because they're trying to do their part to stop gun violence. Setting aside the fact that most criminals aren't buying their firearms at gun shops on credit cards. They point out the 2 mass shootings that they just talked about, but nothing about this would have prevented those. The only way it would have prevented those is if for some reason the gun shop contacted the federal government and said, hey, somebody just bought $12,000 worth of guns, go look at them. And then all of a sudden law enforcement, ATF, comes knocking on your door. Hey, we hear that you bought a whole bunch of firearms, $26,000 worth, come talk to us about it. So if their goal is to prevent these type of things, then you would have to get the information on the front end. Getting on the back end wouldn't do you any good. The crime's already happened. The mass shooting allegedly already occurred. And so finding out what they purchased on the backside would mean nothing. The only reason to implement something like this is so that if there is a, quote, suspicious transaction on a credit card, that it would be reported to law enforcement and they would take preemptive action to stop these crimes or violence or whatever. I mean, you can tell, again, all through the article that that's what it's all about. Let's prevent these things. Let's prevent these things. Well, the only way you can prevent these things is if you gave this information ahead of time to law enforcement, and it's not going to be the local cops. It's going to end up being ATF or the FBI, and they're going to come to your house and demand to do a search or ask you a bunch of questions about these suspicious purchases on your credit card. So this whole thing is crap. Everybody can see what's going on here. They can try and spin it as positively as they want, but it is clearly designed to gather information about lawful people who purchase firearms legally, and then that information is going to be sent off by these private companies to the federal government, and then we all have a sneaky suspicion about what they would do with that information. So obviously, you need to be aware of this. If you can not use these 3 credit cards or any other credit card company, and you can pay with cash or check or some other way to do it, I suggest that you do that, because these are going to be tracked. They're going to be turned over to the federal government, and then now they're going to basically have a backdoor registry for firearms purchases. So that's what's going on with that. Just wanted to bring you an update on that. Thanks for watching. I'm going to end it here. As always, stay safe, stay healthy, stay vigilant, and carry on.